We'll begin this portion of the presentation with the open structure of government. Businesses have the ability to exert power in the American political arena thanks in large part to the open structure of our government. The founders organized our government as a federal system, dividing powers between the national and state governments, with states reserving the right to enforce any law or regulation that is not in conflict with a federal statute, known as the Supremacy Clause. On the federal level, a separation of power between the three branches of government exists, pictured here, whereby the judicial, legislative, and executive branches all check the power of each other. Though this arrangement has many benefits, it has created a complicated regulatory environment where firms in one industry may prosper from one form of enforcement, while another may avoid it at all costs. This is exemplified in the text with the example of cigarette companies versus insurance companies, with one preferring national regulation and the other preferring state regulation. One such area of regulation was the arena of campaign contributions in federal elections, which over the years became so complex with laws accumulating atop of one another that many individuals and firms no longer had a grasp on what was and was not legal. This complexity would be a major factor in the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United versus the FEC. In the next slide, we'll examine the purpose of business. The first enduring trend of the legal environment in which businesses operate is that laws constraining business activity will steadily grow both in number and complexity. The business-government-society field is the interplay between these three forces in which business naturally must operate. The goals of these three forces are not always in harmony, to be sure, though the fundamental purpose of every business, as defined in the text, is to make a profit by providing products and services that satisfy human needs. So how have businesses reconciled these fundamental truths over the years? In the pursuance of their fundamental goal, profits, businesses naturally have sought to influence the government in ways to make profitable operations a simpler and easier endeavor. This is not a modern phenomenon, though it has only been highly visible for the last century or so, as the Industrial Revolution grew and condensed wealth among large corporations and individuals. The next slide will cover business power theory as related to the case. Those who take issue with the amount of power businesses exert subscribe to the dominance theory of business power. They believe that because businesses control most of the wealth, they control most of the power and must be checked by regulations and laws. It is clear that the dissenting minority of the Supreme Court in Citizens United versus the FEC were likely subscribers to this theory, writing that allowing corporations to make unlimited expenditures on political advertisements would invite corruption and undermine the integrity of the political process as a whole. The opposing theory of business power is known as the pluralist theory. Those who believe in this theory feel that businesses do not have overriding power, and that each entity within the business-government-society field has ample ability to check and balance the other. The members of the Supreme Court that joined in the majority opinion likely subscribed to the pluralist theory, writing that government had overstepped its bounds by restricting the free speech of corporations, and that there was no evidence of quid pro quo corruption born out of independent corporate campaign contributions. The next slide will cover business power in practice through history and how it has led to the modern regulatory environment. Whether one agrees with the majority or dissenting opinion of the Supreme Court in this case, it is a fact that the power businesses wielded in years past over the government and society grew at an exponential rate before the first major federal regulations took hold. The early American economy was largely agricultural, and there were very few large corporations. That dynamic took a sharp turn after the Civil War, with the Union's victory draining the political power of the South's agricultural concerns. Big business interests dominated the government for years afterward, taking over entire state governments in some cases. It was the Great Depression and the New Deal that followed that truly changed the government's relationship with businesses. Franklin Roosevelt's administration believed that it was the duty of the government to correct the flaws of capitalism, which is a philosophy that has endured over the years, particularly among progressives. As government influence increased on business operations, businesses in turn intensified their efforts to influence the government, leading to the rise of organized business interests and lobbying.